Cute-thulhu tonight. I've got a few sketches, but I have a starting point. Basically, I'm going to make the head. I had this idea that what I could do is instead of making this in a way that's set up so that I can continuously sew from one pattern, I can adjust afterwards. Stop, not so loud. And what I will do for the time being is I'm going to make this and then just kind of assemble it piece by piece. So if we like different things, I can attach it to it. So if I do ears, small tentacles, but I'm going to get some input from everybody else, see what you guys like. Hey, Cat B. Hey, Tiny. I think I've seen you in here a couple times before. I don't know if anybody knows what we're doing today. I know I wrote it down, but I also know that it seems that TikTok doesn't always keep my titles. So we're kind of doing some adjustments for it. But what I am going to be doing is I'm making a Cute-thulhu today. And part of what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by using a pattern that I made before for what I called gooblings. And the intention is to basically make the head. I have another plan for a few other details, but I'm waiting to kind of get some opinions from people as I go. So if you are watching and you are interested in helping out, let me know what you're thinking. Oh my God. Dogs barking all over the place. It's crazy. Okay, so I drew up some sketches to begin with. I'm going to show you what I've got. Just a few basic ideas. I'm going to do a general shape of the head, and I can adjust it later. But I had the thought of making it as like a whole squid sitting on top, so maybe small arms in the back, small tentacles. Thought about giving it a little bump on the head. It kind of makes it a little bit more cutie, almost like it was hair. I got the bulbous eyes. I've got ideas for putting a fin and using small tentacles. So I've got lots of different small changes that we can do. I drew this up as the body, and here's my plan. I'm thinking that for the body, which I can do later, we're going to focus on the head today. Chip shush, exactly. I'm thinking what I'm going to do is use this body. And I like the shape of it. I might put different colors, but I'm probably just going to do it all green for the body of the Cute-thulhu. And I'll put that together later. I've got this sketch to show roughly what I was thinking. Maybe build some tentacle feet or something along those lines. I'll put the wing on his back. But what I really need help with is what you guys think is best for the tentacles on the face. Should I have lots of eyes? Should I give the eyes like a shape around them? Do you think I should shape the head in more of an oval? Maybe put layers on it so that it's kind of squid-like? A lot of little things like that. So if you see any of this, you have some thoughts on what you like the most, then please let me know. I think my wife is in the other room. I'm going to check and make sure that the breadsticks don't burn. Sorry, guys. I'll be there in just a moment. I'm trying to take the breadsticks out.
I got him.
Okay.
Thank you, sorry.
All right. She's making dinner right now, so we are going to go ahead and keep working. I got pizza today, so I actually ate before I started this live. Usually I don't even eat until afterwards. This is the color we're going to be working with. It's a nice color. I wish I had the olive color still. I think I just saw Cat B say something. The bigger picture one, this one? I think this is the one you're referring to. And my intention my idea for this one is the bulbous head, and then we'll change the shape as we go. Okay, excellent, Cat B, excellent. And then what I'm going to do is maybe have it so that let's imagine this is the top view. And then all the tentacles will be coming out the front. But I'm probably going to have like smaller tentacles coming out the back. We'll kind of see how that works out. So they'll hang out the back, and then I'll still have the wings as well. So we have a lot of things going on with it. This is what I used to make what I called gooblings. And I think this is going to be a really good starting point for how I make the shape of the head. So we're going to start off with this rounded shape. I wish I had a goobling to show you, but honestly, I'm happy I don't, because the reason I don't is that every time I made them, people wound up buying them. They were just tiny little monsters I made, and I had this whole idea of setting them up so that they could be like adaptive in different ways. But this is going to make roughly a ball-shaped head. I think I will probably just start with the top and bottom. And once we get, I'm sorry, just the top. And then once we know what we're going to do with the shape, I will make some more adjustments and maybe add the bottom to it. Maybe I'll just change the bottom shape overall. It's nice having a few patterns that I have worked with before because it gives me the option to kind of just run with them. I'll go ahead and turn the TV off before I get too overstimulated here. That's probably my only real problem with Chip. Of course, I know that happens with a lot of people. When he starts barking and I'm trying to do talking and trying to figure out something, it drives me nuts only because I get like lost in what's happening. I've got so many thoughts running through my head that when he starts barking, it confuses me almost. And I know that is almost the exact definition of being overstimulated. But it still makes me feel bad because I don't want him to feel like he can't have fun and play. And I keep saying things about moms that go through that same thing with their children getting loud. And it does happen to me as well. I spend a lot of time with Vance alone. So we're watching TV or playing games or when we're trying to sleep. And sometimes I just can't focus on anything because of it. It's a whole process, isn't it? At the same time, you feel bad about it. And I've learned a lot about being a lot more patient. And I've read some things where a lot of people go through that same thing, where being a parent, you thought you were patient, and then you have to relearn patience. And I really do think that it makes a big difference on life as well. Because now there's a whole lot of real world small things that don't bother me. But I have to like take a breath whenever I've got my son smacking me in the back of the head and then the dog barking. And then with this, it's kind of taught me a little bit extra patience too, because now I'm also trying to show a lot of little things that I've learned while making plushes. And here's a neat thing. One of the first things I did, I think patience changes. It probably does. I don't know if it's age or experience, but yes, patience definitely changes. Not always better, not always worse, but definitely changes. All right, so one of the first things I learned when I was making plushes was to make a cube. And then after that, I learned how to make a sphere, a ball. This shape, 4 of these connected, will actually turn into a ball. And what I wound up doing was adapting this just a little bit. This was the mouth, the top mouth of what I called gooblings. I don't even have any sketches of them right here. I know I've got one somewhere, but I'm pretty sure that I think I've got one somewhere, but I'm pretty sure I sold them all out. I go to craft shows and I had them laying around for quite some time. And then I think I gave a couple away for like Christmas stuff too. Like I went to a church and dropped off a few plushes. And then I had a couple of people that were saying that they didn't have stuff for their kids. And I know that they weren't special, but in my opinion, it was like, the idea was maybe if the kids would like it, they could ask for it. And I had a couple parents ask. So what we're going to do today, we're making this Cute-thulhu. I'm going to keep adjusting the camera over and over again. So this is what we're aiming for. So what I'm going to be doing right now should be roughly about this much of it. I may wind up having to make the next 2 pieces. We're going to see, because I think there's a chance that I'm going to do is, sorry, I'm trying to figure out the best way to show that. So roughly what I'm going to do is about this shape. So it'll be the top part of the head. And then the next thing I'm going to try and find out is if I have to make a bottom part, and if I want to change the shape of it, which I might wind up doing so that I can adjust the shape of the head in the overall. And since the first thought that we had was Cat B likes the shape of the big one, we're going to do that with this. I'm going to draw a slightly more detailed version of what I'm looking at so that we can all be on the same page. So if we were looking at this from the top, I do have to do that on the table here. All right, if we're looking at it from the top, that'll be the top of the head. We're going to have, let's see, I got 3 here. I got 1 centered. We're going to have thick tentacles here. Then I'll start doing a couple smaller ones. And then I might do like tiny ones all across the back of the head. So it almost looks like there's an octopus sitting on top of the body. When I get done with this, what I'm going to probably wind up doing is using the the test body I made for Slowpoke and use that as a template because that's what I've actually got drawn here. I think that this will look good with an octopus sitting on top of it. Then what I'll do is add changes. This is not going to be like a final version of the Cute-thulhu. It's going to be more of a, not a test, but we're going to try and do it so that it's not repeated super easy. I'm going to sew on different things. I'll cut different things and do some freestyles, cutting and sewing all right now. So we're going to test that out as a method. I haven't done that before. The closest I've come is making a Pikachu from start to finish. And even that was just a little bit different than what we're going to be trying to do here. Got to find just enough room. Does not look like I can get the whole thing in here. All right, so I got my top of my head cut out. Let's try and find another position so that you guys can see what I'm working with here. Now, one of the downsides is also trying to figure out so that I can see the screen because I'm working on the camera at the same time. And I have to be able to see it, otherwise I miss entire conversations. Now, when I'm doing this, one of the things I'm kind of wanting to work on is I want to work on Wednesdays being for weird days. And to me, a lot of that means like horror concept. So like scary monsters. And I've seen a lot of stuff like oops, let me go ahead and fix my light real quick. Yep. So stuff like Mothman. And that's pretty common. I mean, in fact, I'm fully aware that there's a lot of Cute-thulhus out there. I don't know what words they used for it, but I do know that it's not wholly unique. So I'm not pretending like I'm doing something groundbreaking here. But the point of this is to kind of get started and see what you guys would like to see. So I'm thinking that if you want to see certain things, I'm very happy to do that. I've made nightmares, I've made entire drawings, and then kind of started from there with ideas. So I would love to do something completely unique. And in fact, one of the next ones I try to do might be like that. But I also have to see how this works out. So maybe I'll have to do some adjustment and actually make an entire pattern on my own before I get on, and then just put it together in front of you guys. And we can kind of talk about it. But I don't know what direction to head. I like the idea of doing demons or mutated monsters, just nightmarish horrors that you would see in video games and all kinds of different things like that. But I also think that it might be kind of fun to do fan stuff. So, for example, let's say Dark Souls, maybe? Or trying to make a plush version of the monster from Evil Dead Rise, maybe, where she combined with her kids. I know that's not going to be something for everybody, but the idea is to kind of do something different with it. And I do enjoy horror movies. A good horror movie is so fantastic because quite often they have some great stories. You know, you got a real character that's going through some stuff. You start rooting for somebody. The well-written stories, they also have that turn where suddenly the person you thought that was going to make it, that was the hero, is dead. I remember watching Aliens for the first time, or Alien, the first Alien for the first time. And, well, sorry, as an adult, as someone who could reason, because truth be told, I grew up during the time frame when it was just as likely that your parents were going to put on something that you shouldn't watch just because they were watching it. One of the first movies I remember getting scared of was actually RoboCop because I came in at the wrong time. I wasn't supposed to be in the room, but I came in at the wrong time when that dude got the toxic waste poured on him, and that scared the crap out of me. But Aliens, I saw that pretty young, and that's one of my favorite movies. And I kind of started thinking about how a lot of these movies, you can make horror versions of them because I love these horror stories. And I remember watching on Dallas from the first Alien movie, the captain of the ship, and thinking he was the hero. He was the guy that was going to survive the whole thing. And if you haven't seen it, spoilers, but that movie is so old that I'm really not too concerned about actual spoilers. But it kind of made me really love the idea of watching horror movies because the idea is that almost anything can and should happen. And they've moved away from a lot of that. It's a little bit more predictable nowadays. But there's still some fantastic things. And part of the reason I wanted to make this Cute-thulhu was because of the movie Underwater. I don't know if anybody's seen that. And it's got Kristen Stewart in it, which I know is an immediate turnoff for a lot of people because she's not really a great actress all the time. But that movie was like made for her. That character was fantastic. Rooting for them the whole time. And then the surprise ending at that was that Cthulhu was rising. And that was an amazing turn for me.
I haven't seen it.
Shut up. I don't care if you've seen it. You're not going to watch it anyways. Mm-hmm. All right, so here we go. See what I mean by making the top of the dome? Now, it does look like I'm going to have to make the bottom parts too. So if I've only got the top here, even if I were to shift forward instead of leaving it, putting the eyes right here, I'm definitely going to have to move forward a little bit more. So I'm going to go ahead and cut out 2 more. And what I may wind up doing is, what I'll do is sew the front of it just enough so we can kind of look at that. I can put some stuffing in there and get a little bit of a feel as to what the shape is and how big we need to make the tentacles. I don't know if anyone's got any opinions on it. Feel free at any point in time. If somebody has contrasting opinions on something, let me know. I am more than happy to kind of talk it out. Maybe we'll come up with a mutual decision. Any number of things can happen. And I will do my very best to keep an eye on my phone while I'm doing it. Now, one of the things I want to point out is whenever you're making a plush, you want to make sure that you pay attention to the direction of your fuzz. In my case, my fuzz goes one direction. It goes down, so I always keep my fuzz going downward. That way I know. And here, I've got the top of the head, so I can pet it backwards, because that seems to me like the direction I would wind up petting it if I had this at home. So, likewise, I want to make sure that all the pieces that I cut follow that same direction. It doesn't have to be perfectly up and down. As you can see, the fuzz goes this way, and I've got a slight angle, which will still allow it to flow that same rough direction. And if you're making a plush at home, these little things are going to be a preference issue. You want to decide based on how you like your plushes to feel. So don't feel like this is a rule. It's just something you want to keep track of because it'll make your plush experience a little bit more fun. Once again, this pattern is from something I created. I utilized a very simple ball pattern, made just a very small adjustment. And I know that looks teeny tiny. I wish I had something to show you. I don't even think I have it posted on my TikTok, so I can't even send you in that direction. But I will find a picture before next time so that you can see what I'm referring to with my gooblings. I had this whole plan where I was going to make these gooblings, and I was going to make them with water-soluble thread, water-dissolvable thread, and then I was going to make them so that they evolved. And these crazy, weird, just sketches of things. And I even thought about doing that as my first Weird Wednesday because I already had those designed up. But something just seemed a lot more fun to do as a Cute-thulhu. So that's where we're landing at right now. These are the sketches I'm going to use. This is the first idea that we have. I've made the top of the head so far. We're going to make the bottom of the head. It's just going to be a sphere. And then I will decide how much of it I need to sew together before I need to start worrying about where everything's going to go. We're going to do the tentacles. And as of right now, unless somebody has like different opinions that they'd like to have, we're going to do tentacles all around the head, which you can see in this ever so barely. Just have to make sure the camera can focus on it. It'll almost look like an octopus sitting on top of it. But as we add more to it, we're going to see more of a monster come out of it. And that's the goal. A lot of times whenever I make a plush, I will make one thing and I will fail at it. And then I'll fail at it. And then I will fail at it. And then I will fail at it one last time before I finally make what I'm trying to make. And that's usually how that works out. I just don't want to do all these test versions right now. I'm instead going to be starting with a basic idea. And we're going to actually try to do a little bit different by essentially making it piece at a time and attaching it, even if that means just hand stitching it on. Because I think that one of the cool things that happens when you're making something like this is that without a pattern, without that need to make 20 or 30 of them afterwards, you can kind of just play around with a few ideas. Picture it like if you were sculpting something with clay. You're just going to add a piece to it, take a piece off of it, do the same thing over and over again until you get it right. And in this case, it's going to be pretty close to that. Of course, it's not quite as easy. It's not as easy if I were to just put clay on and smooth it on. I have to do a lot of sewing to get there, but I'm okay with that. We're doing a few different things at once. And truth be told, the process of making something is always one of my favorite parts when it comes to art. I know it also seems the most stressful, but you take the good with the bad, and you just if you don't enjoy the process, there's a whole lot of reason to not do art. And if you can find a way to enjoy the process, even when you fail, I feel like that makes you a full and real artist. It doesn't matter if you are successful with it, but if you can enjoy the process every time you fail and every time you learn something new, I think that just means that it's something that's really passionate to you. And honestly, that makes all the difference. If you've ever had something you truly enjoy, let's say a video game, and you wind up sucking at that game but still having fun, I think you'll understand roughly what I mean. One of the ideas I also have is that I want to make a video game, but I don't have any way to do any programming. So I'm kind of going through the process of writing things out to see if maybe I can find a way to make my own video game. But there's just so much process to that. And I already do so many different things. Okay, right now I'm actually feeling the direction of my fuzz just to make sure I got it together correctly. And I want to make sure it goes the same direction. So what'll happen is, let's see, if I do this, nope, I want it all going up. So what'll happen is, if this is the face, it'll go up this way and then to the back. And by the time I get to the back of the head, bottom of the back of the head, it's going to go the opposite direction. No, it'll keep going around. We should be good with that, which will be very helpful. Again, I like the way it feels whenever I can pet it and it doesn't conflict. I don't go against the grain of the fuzz. This, of course, is just a little preference for me, so don't feel like that's something you have to do. I'm going to pin this in place. I don't always pin something in place, especially when it comes to bigger pieces. One of the reasons I do it when I'm on live is because I'm less likely for there to be a mistake. And I think it's important that you guys see the right way to do it. As you kind of make your own plushes, you'll find ways that you can make things easier. Now, because I want this to center at the same point on both sides, see how that lines up? Since I really want those two to line up, it will make a big difference as to whether or not it's pinned. If I were to just start the needle right here and to start sewing, what will wind up happening is one side will bunch up or one side will stretch. And eventually, even though it stays roughly in place, there's going to be these little kinks that show up. So little folds, little things like that will happen. And honestly, that bugs me more than most things. I would rather it not be lined up on the seam like this. I'd rather it be off center so that it does that rather than have any of the kinks and stuff, because those kinks, they just tend to bug the crap out of me sometimes. It really kind of takes away from the fun of the plush when you can see all the stitches in it and see that they didn't line up. It almost feels like I didn't try hard enough. I don't mind failing, but if I don't try hard enough and it looks like I didn't try hard enough, then I really just can't imagine people thinking that it's worth their time either. And yes, I do want to make this a business, and yes, I do want to make money from it, but I'm also caring. I love to do this stuff, so I want to make sure I put the effort in there. All right, all I'm going to do, I probably will make some adjustments later, but for right now, I'm just going to go ahead and sew the front of the face. If I've done this right, which I could easily have moved things the wrong way, then this should be enough to cover the face. And there we go. Cut this loose. I'm also getting ready to work on cleaning out my work area. Look at this. This is a little bit ridiculous. So I've got scrap pieces here. I've got my safety eyes, my sewing machine, and then over here is just a pile of stuff. I've got finished plushes. I've got unfinished plushes. I've got sewing thread, needles, awls. I've got my patterns. I've got all these little things all over the place, just making a mess. And I know that's a typical workspace, but it's also the living room. So I know I've got to be getting on somebody's nerves. I'm always talking to my wife about trying to get things cleaned up, and I know that I'm also horrible at keeping my area clean, so I can't get too mad, or I shouldn't get too mad, but I'm going to work on cleaning that up too. Okay, here we go, and I'm going to put a little bit of stuffing here so we can see what it looks like, what the shape of it takes. Now, does anybody have any thoughts and stuff that they would also like to see? I mean, if I'm doing any kind of horror plushes or monsters, it doesn't even have to be something that you recognize. It could be something that you saw in a dream or an idea that you had. I'd love to show you some of my sketches here in a little bit from my dreams and stuff. But what I'm going to wind up doing is kind of taking some ideas and see what people are interested in and kind of working from there. Just obviously doing my very best to make something completely new, but fully aware that almost everything's been done somewhere, right? What I'm doing right now is I'm just using a little pin. I need to find a wire brush or like a cat brush, but all I'm doing is pulling that little bit of thread. If you look right here, you can see where the thread gets stuck or the fuzz gets stuck underneath the stitches. And by pulling it out, it just makes it look a little bit cleaner, kind of hides the seam a little bit better. And usually I don't do this until the end, but if I do it now, we can kind of use that as a reference. We'll know exactly what we're looking at. It'll make it a little bit easier to add and subtract from this if there's less intersecting lines that are just throwing off the whole image. Which isn't really a problem, except between the idea of taking suggestions and figuring something brand new out at the same time. It's going to take just a few more moments. I don't need it to be perfect, just need it to be better than it was. And this is something I really like to do because, again, I like to feel like the plushes have like a little bit of heart to them. And the more alive they look, the better I feel like they are. Now, yes, I could sew this closed. But I think as is, you can see that it makes a pretty good rounded shape. I may have to go through and fix that, just kind of sew a little bit tighter or more perfect circle on there. And you can usually see what's going to happen with that whenever you put them together, but there's little things that will surprise you sometimes. You could probably see, if we look at it, there's probably a spot right here where I just didn't sew a straight line, a straight arch, but we'll work on that later. So first thought, if I set up right here, I can start adding tentacles on the side of the head here. Do you guys think that a rounded head is just going to be enough? Just kind of like a sphere? Or should I wind up cutting some of this off to kind of shape the head, maybe give it a little bit more of an oval shape? There's a possibility that just a purely rounded head will actually look perfect for it. Do you guys think I should just go ahead and sew this into a ball and then just keep going from there? How about what I do, I'm going to do that. I'm going to set my stitch just a little bit wider because what will happen is when I get done sewing it, if we decide we need to make some changes and it's got a wide stitch to it, it'll definitely hold together, but it'll also make it easier for me to find the parts that I want to undo. I'm going to go ahead and add a little line here. This is going to be my back side. That way I know not to undo the stitches here. I'll do it at the back. I am going, actually, you know what? That's kind of silly. I'm just going to leave that open anyway, so I didn't need to worry about that. And let's see here. Do just real quick. Now, I am fully aware that this is not going to come together at such a fast pace that this is super entertaining. But I'm doing my best to work quickly so that you can see how easy it is to do a lot of these things. Yes, I know that I've also got experience that you don't, but that's totally okay. Kind of watching this kind of lets you see a little bit more of the closer to the end result. Help you feel more confident in starting because, like me, if you decided to start and you don't have anybody that can show you how to do any of this, I learned it all on my own. I can guarantee you that even if you suck at absolutely everything in life, that you can learn how to do something like this if you just practice. And practice makes all the difference. You'll find all these neat little things that you can do to make it easier. Hey, Spaz. I didn't see you come in. Spaz has been joining me for a while, much like Catbee. I saw Tiny in here a little while ago. There's a couple other people I'm starting to recognize, and I really love seeing that. Thank you so much for coming back, you guys. I really, 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 really love it when you're here. Okay, and I just got, oh, well, I happened to look down just in time to see you. All right. I'm doing better at it. The more people interact with me, the easier it is for me to remember. And I know that I'm going to be bad with names, but if you don't change your profile picture often, I will definitely remember a face. I am really good at remembering faces. So that's kind of, I'm sure that's pretty typical. A lot of artists are probably really bad with names and do their best and wind up recognizing people. I'll remember whole conversations once I realize who I'm talking to. But I just had to get to that point sometimes. All right, so it's a little bit rounded. That's not bad. It's almost like a pod. But at the same time, I've got a slight oval at the top. So I can use this as the top and start adding stuff down here. That's really driving me crazy. I'm going to go ahead and fix that real quick. Come on, come out. There we go. There's just that little bump right about here. And the way that I'm going to fix that is pretty simple. I'm just going to, see, like right there, there's that little bit. You can essentially see what shape you're going to have by the way it's sewn together. So I just need to make a more even stitch across here so it doesn't have that little point. Maybe stitch isn't the right word for it. Maybe an even line right there. I think that's probably a better word for what I'm looking for. A little bit of back stitching. Little corners like that will appear sometimes no matter what you do. But there are times when I can fix it, and of course I do my best to do that. And since it was really bothering me, it's not worth bothering me, I know, but it was bothering me, so I figured I'd try and take care of it. If you are ever going through the process of stuffing a plush, the bigger the hole you leave, the easier it is to stuff in there, so keep that in mind. But the downside to that is the bigger the hole, the harder it is to seal up, especially when you're first learning how to close up these stitches. But once you get a little bit better at it, it's really easy to hide. For example, it just looks like a normal stitch right here on the back. In fact, you can it's very hard to see, but that's where I closed it up. And it used to be, and you'll probably notice this a lot whenever you have plushes that you buy from the store, there's that zigzag on their back. And that's because they're either using a machine or they're not too concerned about making a nice closing stitch, but that's what that usually is. All right, that's nice and rounded. Looks like I've got it a little bit better here. And all I'm doing is kind of spreading out the fluff that's inside. It's not super necessary, but it does help. And one of the things that does help the most, though, is actually slightly overstuffing it. If you get a little bit extra stuff in there, it really shows you what shape it's going to take in the end. The downside is it does get a little bit more stiff, but it's still just fluff. I mean, you could probably pack so much in there that it becomes super hard, like a foam. But you'll stop long before then, depending on what you want it to be. It feels like my chopstick's already about to break. You'd be surprised how often you go through chopsticks trying to do exactly what I'm doing, just spreading out the fluff a little bit. All right, so here we go. Now we have a couple options. Do we want to go with the eyes at the front and a slightly backwards elongated head? Or do we want to go with the head at the top so it's a little bit more octopus-like? I'll put the eyes here so there's a little bit more forehead on the top. Does anybody have any thoughts on what they think would look better? If I do the top of the head, let's see. Let's look at the pictures while we're doing this. It won't be quite as rounded. I can do it a little bit more oblong, so it's a little bit more octopus shaped. I can also cut off the bottom, or sew in the bottom so it flattens it out, and it does give it a more of a rounded shape as well. So instead of being quite as oblong as this, it's such a slight difference that you might not even be able to tell in camera. but it is definitely more oval shaped with this being the top. So let's see, has anybody had any thoughts on it? All right, so I'm trying to decide if I were picking how I would kind of do this. Go ahead and clean up some of these lines real quick. Now, when I do my own, I'm fully aware. This is one of the funniest things that has happened to me as far as creative ideas. When I make these, I'm fully aware that I might be the weirdo and that nothing I make will be anything anybody likes. I've gotten pretty fortunate that most stuff I've made has been fun in different ways because I also don't do a whole lot of fan art stuff. Lately, I started doing the Not a Pokemon, but I love the idea of making my own because then I don't have to worry about it being something that I accidentally infringe on another artist thing. And I want to be respectful to all other creators. Even when I do the Pokemon stuff, I try to do my very best to make them completely goofy and very purposefully fan art-ish compared to like if I was trying to make a perfect Pokemon. All right, so let's see. We got anything on here? Any thoughts on it? All right, so what I'm going to try and do is I think I'm going to do just a little bit of an angle. So we're going to start with the eyes right here. Let's see. Do I want to do the top of the head? Yeah, actually, I think I'll start with the eyes right here. Nope, they're going to go here. So it's going to be slightly oblong. Maybe so the bottom more of a ball. So you think, okay, so then when I put this together, I'll put this together a little bit more like a ball. And I'm going to start putting the tentacles right around here. You go ahead and get some eyes. I think what's going to wind up happening is when I sew it onto the body, it's going to flatten it out anyways. So the oblong part at the top will just kind of stick around. And I think that if I have the eyes right about here, let's see if I can get this both in view. So we've got, this is the basic sketch that we're using. And then if I put the eyes right about here, I can start the tentacles right around that. And it'll give me just a little bit of a bulbous top of the head. And I think that that's a good setup, a good layup and plan for it. Yeah, I kind of like that. So that's what we're going to roughly aim for. Excellent. Thank you, Cat B. And thank you, Spaz. Okay, now, we've got an idea for this. Now, the next thing I need to do is work on the tentacles. So I'm going to show you how I would make a tentacle. Let me see what size of tentacles I already have. Because my Gooblings actually had tentacles. And I did a few different types of tentacles over time. I think that this might be a little bit too big. But I definitely, yeah, this might be a good size. Now keep in mind that I'm going to lose about 1/4 of an inch on the whole thing. So I've got a few tentacles drawn up here. Let me see which ones I've got. So that size will be good. And if I had this setup, I think that that's a good setup. And then we'll do this for the front, and then we'll start getting smaller as we go around. And then that'll do the mixing that you're thinking, Cat B. And of course, I can always cut them a little bit shorter or sew them in a little bit more so that they're not this exact shape or this exact size. Because this will be a good shape, a good size, but I'm not sure for this size of head. Of course, we are looking to make huge. So maybe I'll do, let's see here again. Trying to look at all the sizes that I have. If I did a really large one, maybe 2 really large. No, that's just too big. I think that's just too big. Yeah. But I will admit, I kind of like this shape a little bit too. Get everything back into my bag here. I don't know how everybody else stores it. I just throw it into Ziploc bags. There we go. And here we go. It doesn't matter which side is up. They're all going to be using that one. All right, excellent, excellent. Okay, so we're going to do... These aren't too close to the same. We did this. Even if we did this, that'll be fine. But do I like this one better? I don't like it better, but it's not like it's worse. Maybe, no, because I don't want both of them sticking out. I kind of want one sticking in, and that's too much of a curve. So I'll do that. One of the things I have to keep in mind is, though I'm not a fan of symmetry, I definitely want it to look planned out and intentional. Granted, if you were to catch an octopus just moving around, you're not likely to catch things moving the same direction. But for me, I am making a plan. Now, there are two ways that I have found to make tentacles. Both of them work really well. One plan is, for example, I would make two of these, and I would sew, let's say, from here all the way around to the tip, and then I would just cut a triangle that I would put on the other side of it. That gives you a flat end and a rounded end. I think for what we're doing here, we're going to start off with this one as the center, and I'm going to do that as the triangle one so I can show you, because even if I don't do them all triangle, this will make it come out forward, and I think that that'll look good. And then you can help me decide if I want to make the rest of them triangle shaped or just half. Now the other way is literally just sew two pieces together like this, and it makes, just changes the shape of it, of course. This is my pile, there we go. And I want that to come down. So I want to go so that it's like you're stroking down on the beard or something like that. I'm going to bring it all the way over here. That should still give me that same direction. Let me make sure real quick here. Yeah, it'll be close enough. Again, not perfectly perfect, but at the same time, it gives me a good direction for that fuzz that is still what I want. Usually I haven't eaten before I've gotten on, and I'm suddenly realizing there's a benefit to not eating, because I had a soda, and though I shouldn't have soda, I had soda, and now I am trying not to burp on camera, and that's kind of hard to do sometimes. Fun fact about me, about the Versatile Deviant, also Sky Online, I did not learn how to burp until I was 30. Which literally meant I did not burp. It's kind of goofy, stupid, and now I feel really weird when I burp because I spent a greater portion of my life not doing it. Sometimes I feel weird when I do burp. Anybody got any fun facts about themselves and their process of living? I'm more than happy to hear some of that stuff too. Also, does anybody else have any other horror movies that they think would be fun to see? I had mentioned seeing, maybe making the demon version of The Mother in Evil Dead Rising, where I basically make a series of plushes, maybe like all teddy bears, but I merge them together like some giant mutant teddy bear. I have done something similar to that, but not with that much aim. And then I can add like teeth and hands coming off in random places. Just something to I'm kind of curious about if anybody's considered anything that they would like to see a plush version of. Did I do that right? Did I do them both the same? No? Okay, good. All right, so for what I'm going to do, this is going to be the top of my tentacle. So I'm just going to do a quick stitch across the top here. Again, I am still leaving the stitch on my sewing machine a little bit wide. It's just over 3. Now, what it means is, if you were to imagine my fingertips as the stitches, this is 1. They are super tight right next to each other. 2 spreads it out a little bit. 3, 4, so on. There's a lot of different reasons why you might use different stitches. For me, I am using the different stitch because I want to make sure that if I want to undo something, I can really see it and I can get my seam ripper in there and just tear it off without having to work too hard for it. But I also know that it's going to be a strong enough stitch where if I don't want it taken apart, I don't have to worry about going back over every little thing that I've done. And there's that. Okay, now I have got the first version of the first tentacle that I'm doing. It's going to have this top stitch, and then I'm going to sew a wedge right in here. Now, you have a lot of different ways you can do that. You could literally measure this out. You could find out from using just a ruler. So if you really want to cut it out perfectly, you can do that. You could also use a tape measure, a sewing tape measure. I don't remember if there's a separate word for that or not. And just follow it along. But what I'm going to do, since I've done this a few times, is I've decided how thick I want my wedge to be. I'm just going to do a little bit of a longer one. Here, I'll show you. Again, got to find my fuzz direction. Go here, here, here. I'm not doing it in a different color because I kind of want this Cute-thulhu to be all one color. But you could change colors. When I made some tentacle monster mushrooms or pumpkins, I used purple. And then on the bottom, I put green or brown so that it looked like it was a different color. But I'm kind of thinking maybe I should do, you want to see like a black bottom to it? Or should I do maybe a neon or maybe like a mint colored bottom? Does anybody have any thoughts? Do you want to see two different colors on this Cute-thulhu? Especially since it's so dark right here. But I don't think that's going to be a problem if it's all the same color and it's all this really dark color. But if you guys have an opinion, I think mint is a good idea. Okay, what I'll do is I'll go get my mint real quick. And I'm going to sew the underside of that. Do you think it matters that this is probably going to be the only one that has a mint bottom to it? It just occurred to me. I know I asked about it, but that's kind of part of the problem. I'm kind of reasoning as I go. And I just realized, so if I do this tentacle with the triangle and then these ones without the triangle, but I only have mint here, it's really going to stand out. I think I'll be better off doing it all the same color. And then if I do another one, we'll kind of revisit it that way. Okay, well, all right. I can deal with that. I will be right back. I'm going to go get my mint. All right. See, that's what I want. I love the idea of you guys interacting and letting me know what you think. Because worst case scenario, that means that I am working with you, and that makes it a little bit more fun. So we're going to have, even if it doesn't wind up being, if there's no other parts, because I could always do the belly. Like I've got the belly here as white. I could always do the belly as mint. I could always add other mint details later. So this, let's see, we're going to do just a very simple triangle. Doesn't have to be perfect in any way, shape, or form. And I need it to be about here long. So let's see if I'll do it just a little bit longer. You can use a ruler. You could literally make this a perfect triangle if you wanted to. Just follow that line. Also, with this kind of shape, if you were to curve that triangle, what will happen is this will take that shape as well. So it'll bend and adjust accordingly. I'm just wanting it straight. So what we're going to do is just a very simple little wedge right about here. I'll make this a little bit wider. And then what I'll do is I'll sew from the bottom to the top and make sure that the last stitch that I do closes off that triangle for me. This is something I've got a little bit of experience and practice with. But the first times I made tentacles, man, I did math for it. I wanted to get certain angles and all this other stuff. It's not something that you have to worry as much about, but you definitely can. And in fact, I've got like 20 different tentacles that I've drawn in different shapes and sizes. And the reason you need to have the first one as a pattern, I think, in my opinion, there's probably other ways you could do it without having to worry too much about it, is because you want both sides to be the same shape. So you want to be able to mirror it when you draw your pattern. If you just did a sporadic tentacle and then you wanted to make the other side, otherwise you'd have to fold that material down and roughly trace it. And that doesn't always work the way you might want it to. Of course, it is not wrong to do it that way. So keep that in mind as well. All right, so if I start here, well, it looks like I'm going to have to, it's been a while since I made it, so I do realize I'm going to have to start at the top and work my way around. Because this is taking on a unique shape instead of a straight line, I am going to do some pinning. Oh, this is something somebody suggested to me last time I was on, putting the ball on the outside. It's a very brilliant idea, and it cracked me up because I'd never thought of it. Now I don't have to worry about these all getting in the way, because if I have like 5 pins in here, you could already see that just 3 pins are going to start to get in the way of each other. So, do here. There are multiple ways that you can attach 2 layers of fabric together. I've seen people using clips, pins. I've used basting before, which is running a stitch all along the outside of it so that they do connect perfectly. But it just depends on your personal preferences, the shape that you're doing. This isn't such a detailed shape that I feel like I have to do the basting thing. Get my material to lay down flat. Okay. And now, because my stitch is so wide, I'm actually able to put the pins in between, and the needle will just hit here and go right over it. And even if the needle does land almost directly on a pin, the good news is that the pin is so small and rounded that it usually goes right over it. Now, that being said, it is possible, and I have done it, that the needle could land so perfectly on your pin that it breaks your needle. It's not something I have a direct solution for. You could take your needles and your pins out one at a time as you sew, just before you get to it. So it's a kind of a preference thing as well, but there may be a technical right and or wrong answer. Me learning by myself, everything I've learned could be absolutely horribly wrong. Look at that. All that fuzz is just getting everywhere and tickling my nose like crazy. Okay, so looks like I missed that end. I'm going to go ahead and stitch that up just a little bit more. I want to get it as close to that corner as I can. But I also, there we go. Would you stop that? There we go. Kind of line that up with my previous stitch. Again, it is a wide stitch, so I also have to keep that in mind. See, now you can actually see how it hugged the curve. I'll do the same thing on this side. What I'm going to actually do to make it easier on myself is I'm just going to do a little stitch right here. And the reason for that is because if I start at this end, you can see that it doesn't line up. It's not a perfect match. So I can't really start without guessing. But if I do this, I can then turn it around and sew on this side and not have to worry about losing that corner. I can very visually see this corner right now. So it's going to help me just to start on that point instead. Always trying to do back stitches when I can. That kind of keeps the threads from coming out on it. A lot of little details are going to be things that you learn pretty easily from your own mistakes. I know that I have. And because of that, there's a lot of little things that I'm doing just out of habit and a lot of things that I'm seeing. Now, you're probably going to, if you're trying to make your own plushes, there's going to be a lot of things that you will not see because you haven't done it. And thread and fabric do their own things. They change shape. They have no interest in what you want to do. They just want to stretch however they want. And it becomes its own type of aggravating. But these are little things that you pick up on and you start to see patterns too. All right, now let's double check to make sure I got it all the way to the corner. Looks like I did. I'm pressing into it pretty hard. Okay. Obviously, I can cut this off, but I also don't need to. So I'm not going to. Since what I'm doing is a lot of guesswork, I'm not going to do anything I don't have to do to it. Inside, right side this out. These two colors match up really pretty. Although in this exact moment, for some reason, it reminded me of toothpaste. And I don't know if that's going to happen to anybody else, but it's funny to me. Now, you can see we got a tentacle. We got some shape to it. We got a thick end, a thin end. It's got some curve. If I were to curve this out some more, it would also take that curve as well. So it would be like thick and thin. You do want to be careful. If you do like a hard curve on the underneath, but this is not built for that, you're going to have parts that bend like this. It's going to do its best to do both the curve and the shape of this material. And it's one of those things that as you do it, you'll see little things. And another thing to keep in mind is if you were, I'll show you this in a minute, if you're just doing the two pieces stuck together and you don't have the third one, that's going to be 100% the shape of the two sides. Let's stuff this in here. I've learned that I also need to thread out of the way. Small point here. If you just take a whole wad and stuff it in there and try and push it in there, it's not just going to break up. So you definitely want to do a little bit at a time for these small pieces. Let's say you got ears, or you've got a snout, or legs with toes. You want to do the small parts first. For example, when I do my toes, my feet, I have to do just a tiny little bit of plush filling in each foot, and then I do a big wad for the body. So it's little things that'll make an adjustment to it so that you don't have to worry about, because it's just not going to separate. You can push all you want trying to get one little piece to separate from it. But if you had a big wad here and you're just trying to get a little piece out, see, it just pushes right through. And if it's stuck in there as a huge chunk, you're not going to get any of it to separate the way you want it to. Okay. And here is our first tentacle. Go ahead and show you what that will look like. So that's going to be our first one right down the center. And I'm going to turn it just a little bit, I think. I think maybe I'll put it like right here. But I'm also going to bring it downward. It's still a little bit bigger than I was picturing, but the good news is the next two will match up with that. So it's all going to be in keeping pretty well. And when I sew it on, I will be able to pick how I want it to sew, and I'll just sew a little bit tighter so that it keeps the mouth downward instead of sticking straight out like that. You know, if I was doing an octopus, this would be nearly perfect because then I could just have that coming out. So that's just kind of let you see. And I'm going to do all three of these first ones before I do anything else to sew it on. Now these two, the next two, are going to have just the outside two pieces. Let me go ahead and put the first one away. This way I don't get confused, and that way I don't lose it amongst the junk on my pile here. So these two, they've got a lot more defined shape to them. I could still put an underpiece to it, and that would just make a bottom much like this is, and they would stick out and would have that shape, so on and so forth. But for these two, I'm just going to do the sides with no bottom. Oh, I just realized I put the wrong way. So you can pet down on the tentacle, but on the inside, it's exactly what I don't want. The good news is I think it works because it is a different color, but I do prefer it to be the same direction. Oh, well. And get my material lined up here. Now, if you are curious as to what material I'm using, it's called Minky. My understanding is that it is a synthetic material. So it's not going to be made from cotton. It's probably made out of plastic. But it is super soft. Whenever I do a craft show, I always tell people that pass by that if they like what they see, they really need to touch them because they are even softer than you realize when you look at them. And of course, the fluff looks soft, but it is amazing how many people touch it and realize just how much softer it really is. I actually say that the material feels softer than a squishable, or what's the other one? Mallows? Squishmallows. The squishables and the squishmallows. They are soft, but they're mostly soft because their stuffing is super soft. These are soft because this material is just so smooth and so silky. So if you're ever kind of out looking for something to try and make a plush with, granted, you could use just about anything, but I really suggest you try Minky at some point in time, and it's spelled like it sounds, M-I-N-K-Y. Because I think you'll be very pleasantly surprised. Oh, we've already been on for 45 minutes. I had no idea. I think I actually got on pretty close to the time I intended to today, which is not something that happens very often. All right. So again, what I'm doing is I'm cutting out the mirror sides of both of these tentacles. The intention is that they are going to be lined up together. This is how you're going to make a majority of your plushes. You're going to have a mirrored side. Now, the difference being that as you kind of get used to doing things, you're going to cut wedges and put little spaces into it so that one side is not the exact same as the other. But if you're doing feet and ears, there's a lot of things that you'll find are the exact same. And depending on the shape that you're aiming for, that's just one of the easiest ways to kind of get started. When I did the sphere on his head, which was not so much a sphere as it was like a football shape, it's 4 of the same shape. So starting off by doing something like that will give you a lot of information on what to expect when you're working with plushes. And it's an easy way to work on it. Let's see. I'm trying to check and see if there's anything anybody's been saying. I don't want to leave anybody out. I'm definitely not trying to ignore someone. I love interacting with people. I don't know. Has anybody said anything about other like horror thoughts that they had that would be fun to make plushes of? I had mentioned Evil Dead Rise. I had mentioned how I love to make horror movie. Or I love horror movies. So making this as a Cthulhu, especially since I like the movie Underwater. I think it'd be pretty neat to make different versions of things. So maybe like teddy bears or cats and just kind of creepy them out. I don't know if anybody watched that movie, Late Night with the Devil. At one point in time, the woman who was possessed was hovering in the air, and the film director, the FX crew used these practical effects to have her face split open and reveal like a void of evil. It wasn't like another monster. It was just an empty space. So something like that might be kind of neat to make, where maybe a cute teddy bear has a split face that reveals darkness behind it. I know that's not everybody's bag. I know there's a possibility there's a lot of people that are coming in here like, whoa, he's talking about some weird stuff. I am sorry. I'm not intending to do anything that causes a problem for anybody. I haven't exactly developed a series of posts that show it, but I'm kind of an odd dude. I make these really cute things and I make these really scary things, and I do them because I enjoy doing them. I have this idea for making a video game that is a combination of cute and scary, and I've decided that what I'm going to do is try and animate it and then digitally animate it and make stories out of that as well. What about the Winnie the Pooh movie? I haven't watched those. I haven't watched Winnie the Pooh, Steamboat Willie. What else was there? There was Popeye the Sailor Man. I hadn't seen any of those. Were they actually worth watching? I know that they were. I know the way that Winnie the Pooh looked in that, and so making a plush like that might actually be pretty fun to do. I imagine the company has already started doing that, because anybody who I picture wanting to watch that movie probably would love to have a vicious and murderous Winnie the Pooh plush. And that's got to be on that list of thoughts that they had when they made that movie. It's like, this has got merchandise written all over it. But also, when I think of that movie, I think of movies like Rubber, the one with the murderous tire that was causing people's heads to explode. And I think that's not a very scary bad guy to make a plush of, but a funny idea to make a plush of. It's just a tire. It's just a donut. Yeah, but if you know, you know. Okay, so here's my 2 pieces. What I'm going to do on this one is I'm going to sew all the way around. It was so good. I love the Winnie the Pooh horror character. Okay, left them and they were left to their devices. Oh, so basically, my understanding of the storyline is that Christopher Robin just left the 100-acre wood and then they were forced to wait on him and he never came back. And that they became evil or disgruntled because of that. Does that sound about right? And I think there's 2 of them now, isn't there? I want to say there's 2 of those movies. All right. As you can see, I did not pin this together. I'm just kind of running through it. If it's not perfect, I'm not too worried. One of the things that... This is something that's pretty neat. And I'm going to explain this to you. Yep, and they ate each other's... Other Pooh was leadered. Like, they ate each other and Pooh was like the last survivor. That just kind of adds to the whole story there. And they ate campers. That's so funny. Which means that they're probably not far off from making Yogi Bear the horror movie. Okay, so what I was going to say, let me show you just a little bit as an example. Give me one moment here. Let me get to a certain point. If you stretch the material as you sew, what winds up happening is it gives it a little bit of a pull in a different direction. I had to cut it short because I could already tell that some of my material was coming off. So if I do this right, what'll happen is I'm going to pull the top or the bottom, in this case, probably the top, as I sew. So that's going to stretch it out just a little bit. And then because this material is going to want to collapse back in, what's going to wind up happening is it'll curl one way or the other in accordance to what you pull. I love doing this for horns. So I'm giving a little bit of extra push so that it lines up here. Now, this is almost the exact opposite of what I was talking about with the fabric kinking up on me and how much I hate that. But this is planned, and because it's planned, it works a little bit differently. Now, when I do horns, like I've done goat horns, I will do this exact same thing, and it'll pull the horn in and around to give it that nice spiral that a goat horn would have. And there we go. I'm going to go ahead and use this as a handle for the next piece. And the 8 campers were left. That's so funny to me. I get the concept behind it. Now I'm kind of curious about the whole series. My understanding is that they want to do like a shared universe. Like they want to do, what is it? I keep forgetting his name. Popeye. They want to put Popeye in the same universe as the Steamboat Willie. And I think they did a Betty Boop one. I'm not sure about that one. But with Winnie the Pooh and all that, I think it'd be funny. I think that would be a lot of fun. If those movies are any good, then that would be a wild bunch to watch work together or against each other. All right, this one I'm going to try and stretch at the bottom. I know the last time a Monster Universe was attempted, it failed miserably because they were trying to do that with the Tom Cruise Mummy movie. But I know that it failed out miserably. I think it would have been fantastic to make the Mummy movie and combine that with the Dracula Untold. I know that Dracula Untold was considered a horror movie, but I didn't see that as being a horror movie. It's kind of hard to gauge when people just say, oh, it's a vampire, that makes it a horror. Trying to pull the bottom piece just a little bit. Now I had to pull the bottom. The reason I want to pull the bottom is because I want them to angle away from each other. If I pulled both the top on both of them, they'll both pull the same way. But the downside to pulling the bottom is that I have to pull it just right so that it still feeds through. Otherwise, all I'm doing is stopping from sewing. And I'm also trying to make sure that the top gets a little bit scrunched in. So it looks like I'm going to get a good 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch difference. That should be plenty to pull it in. And you can even see it right here. See how it curves just a little bit? Now, depending on circumstances, you can get that curve to be very pronounced. I think that this material is not quite stretching as much as I expected. But see, again here, you can see how it curved. That's exactly what I wanted. It gives that tentacle more definition, more shape. And I do want to make sure that I've got it all sewn up. So I'm just kind of running it through, especially since I tried stretching some of it out. Stretch, stretch, stretch. Okay. Again, all I'm doing is just making sure that I caught all the stitches. Now I'm going to trim up the tip of it just a little bit. And where it curves, I'm going to cut just a couple little slices. And the reason is because if I just inside this out, where these sharp curves are, they won't take that curve. This being all straight means it'll kind of bunch up just a little bit, but tiny little slits, just a couple, like 1/4 of an inch, 1/2 an inch apart, allow it to shift and actually curve a lot more. It's not super necessary, especially on a tentacle like this, where the shape doesn't need to be super defined, but it does make me feel better knowing that is going to happen. Oh, my nose is itching enough where I had to go get a rag. Now I got to put that rag somewhere where it's not going to get in the way. All right, I got that cut. Got this one cut. I had forgotten what I'd already done just like 10 seconds ago. And right here. The reason is that sewn through? Yeah. It's close, but it definitely did catch it all. Now be careful if you're doing something like this. You don't want to cut your thread. And if you do cut too close, just cut it. I mean, just resew it. It'll be a little bit aggravating, but I really think that if you want the shape of your plush to take those curves, it's worth doing that. And it's not like it's hard to avoid either. Just sometimes you might slip. Any number of things like that could happen. But you can see right here, because I cut that out, it took that curve really well. Now, because this is only going to be 2 pieces of fabric, this is automatically going to be thinner than if I had that third piece on the bottom to give that extra side. So that means that immediately after the center tentacle, we're already getting it smaller, which I think will look really good because it'll be progressively smaller in a way. Even if I make the next ones the same size as this, it'll still look a little bit more balanced because they're not all the exact same. See, and you can also see the curve that's in there. I'll go ahead and fill this up real quick. Now, when you kind of get a little bit of practice doing something like what I was talking about with the curve, you'll get a lot of definition. When I do a horn, like a goat horn, I actually make a spiral and it cuts in like that. And then when I tighten up one side of it, it actually overlaps. And it looks really good when it overlaps like this, because that's almost exactly how it looks. And that's something I could show you at another time. Maybe we'll do some demons, or maybe we'll add some horns onto this Cthulhu, because it's not like we have to follow some sort of Cthulhu rules to make it look a certain way. I do think that when I am finished with it, putting this on, I do want the ears. I kind of think that it'll look really good with these kinds of ears, even if I make them smaller or more to the side. And I've got a few ideas for how I'm going to do that so it really takes the shape. I'll probably do like the whole ear and then just sew in the little lines and remove the stuffing. I think that that'll be a cool look to it. And worst case scenario, I sew them and I realize I don't like them. I can just use them on something else later. Let's see. When we're kind of going through this, we were talking about Evil Dead, and I honestly love the Evil Dead series. I'm not a huge fan of the very first movie, the one that they kind of remade. But over the years, I've learned that there's different ways you can watch that combines the first and second movie into a great movie. And then, of course, there's Army of Darkness. And then they started making the new ones. And I really think that those are some great movies. And I even watched the series. So there's a lot I could do with like Deadites. And one of the fun little facts I learned at some point in time is that one of the ideas is that the books were written by these demons, right? The Necronomicons were written by these demons. If you've ever watched Jeepers Creepers, the monster from Jeepers Creepers is actually one of the monsters, the demons that wrote one of the Necronomicons. And I think that is a fantastic little addition to that story. Okay. All right, let's get that out of here. All right. Let's see what we have got. So you can see just a little bit of curve. It really didn't take too much of it. It's just a little bit right here, but that's okay. We're going to do like this. And then like that. So we're going to have 3. So I'm going to go ahead and sew these on. We're going to do a very tentative sew. Something I can quickly put together. And then when it turns 8 o'clock, I might be done for the night. I really don't know how long I'm usually on. Sometimes it's kind of hard to tell. And here we go. Got all this stuff all over the place here. Are you the guy who makes the cute mice? I'm hoping these are what you're referring to. I've got a mouse and a bunny here. If that's what you're referring to, then yes, I indeed am that dude. Is that what you were talking about, Elisa? Slug and shell. Yes, we're making a Cute-thulhu. All right, let's go. What we're going to do is we're going to sew these tentacles onto that face, and we're going to see what we like. Yes, I do make my own pattern. And in fact, that's roughly what we're doing right now. I am making a brand new something. We're starting off with these sketches. I have gotten some opinions and some feedback on what we're doing. Our plan right now is this big rounded head with a series of tentacles up front. I made my own pattern for these guys after we found my son in his ultrasound. I decided that I was going to nickname him Mouse. And shortly after, I came up with a plan and I made a little plush mice. And yes, Baz, not only is this yours, but it's finally got its tail. I hope you like it. This is made for Spaz, and it was Pinkie Pie themed. So I actually had some My Little Pony material that I used to make the stars, that I used right here with the stars and the hat. I had some material that was multiple colored, so I can get both the pink and the purple. I used a little bit of fuchsia with this shiny material, and this was her bunny. Oh, I'm so glad you love it. Okay. Back to the plan here. Let's go ahead and start on the middle. Oh yeah, the jumping mouse was all. Yep, we had that whole conversation shortly after I did maybe the bunny or something else. I'll show you the jumping mouse in just a moment. I'm trying to tie my thread on real quick. My jumping mouse is right here. It's got a big long tail. I've got another one that is right here. I've been working on a suit for. I have to make the sleeves, but I think I've pretty much figured out how to make the rest of the suit with the collar and everything. I've sewed it on, and this actually comes off. So I am happy to ship to the UK, but the problem is that the shipping is crazy expensive, possibly. Now, I'm more than happy to look at it. If you want to send me a message, we can work together and find out what we can do. But I also have a pattern. And if you are interested, we can help you get that pattern, and then you can always make your own. It took me a long time to figure it out, and I'm not sure that my pattern is very good because I haven't had too many people test it out for me. But it is designed to be that you can make either the bunny or the mouse, depending on which one you want. So if you are interested, Elisa, please feel free to message me. We'll talk it out. I can make you one. I can help you make your own. I sell the patterns. I just can't express that particularly well here because then the algorithm thinks that I am trying to do advertisement and it might boot me off. So that is not my intention. To any robots that are watching. All right, now I want to get this down just a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tuck all of this in just a little. I'm going to tuck the bottom in just a little bit extra so that I can sew just a little bit higher. You see how I get to change the way that this comes together? And it gives me a little bit of freedom. I am not doing a very tight stitch. This is the same type of stitch I would use if I were attaching it, but I'm not doing it as a permanent way. This way I can undo a lot of things as we go, because we might find that since this is not a perfected pattern, that there's a lot of little things we just don't like, especially since the goal is Cute-thulhu. There's a slight chance that instead of doing this in greens, I should have done it in pinks because that would have been really cute. But if we like it in the end and I start working on figuring out the pattern for it, I can make some in pink. And I think that'll make for a fantastically cute Cthulhu. I had this idea for making a card game. I have so many different ideas, so many different thoughts. I love to write. I love to draw. I love to paint. And I had this idea of making a card game. And I've got this whole plan for it. But one of the things I want to do is a Cthulhu. How did I describe it? It's a poodle and a Cthulhu. Cthulhu. That's what it was. So a 3-headed or a giant monstrous poodle with the Cthulhu head. When you do the Cthulhu, you should do it in pink. Oh, I definitely think I will. Once I figure out exactly what we're going to do with it, once I've gotten all the details figured out, I'm going to be making a pink one. It probably pink with the mint would be a great combination for that too. All right, now let's go ahead and close this up real quick. Again, I'm not doing this in a perfectly stable way. This would probably hold forever, especially if nobody were to use it. If I just put it up on a shelf as a display. But I could also come back later and tighten up all the stitches, make everything a little bit stronger. So the good news is I'm not putting myself in a situation where I can have to worry about either direction of it. So there we go. That's going to look pretty good, I think. And I'm going to line this up right about there, a little bit tight to the first one.
I like that color.
It's a pretty color, isn't it? It's not as pretty as the olive. The store nearby used to carry this olive color material that I made a kraken out of. It was such a cool color for sea monsters. And while this is a great color for that, it's not quite as cool as that color was. And I'm a little bit bummed that I can't buy that anymore. At least not without ordering it online.
I like this better.
You like this better? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a nice color. It definitely is. And it definitely has sea monster feel to it.
What your son did.
I think you let him do that. That's not me. That's not you. Or that's not him. Yeah, I believe you were talking about the pink with the mint color. Yeah, I really do think a pink and mint colored Cute-thulhu will be a really good combination. No, he's okay. He's okay. It's not. No. Yeah, but Mommy was thinking you were in danger, and I was trying to let her know that she didn't have to hurt herself getting back in there. Yeah, so that's lining up pretty nicely. I just got to keep that shape by tucking everything in. It's a little bit harder since this is open, but it's not impossible. It's just that because that's not going to hold a specific shape, it does change the way that this is going to rest. And the only way I could fix that is by actually closing that up. And I just don't want to close it up right now. And I think if I start sewing a little bit higher. Now you can, if you haven't been able to tell, by hand stitching this on, I have a little bit more leeway. If I were to just cut a circle and start machine sewing it in, yes, it would go where I want it to go, but it doesn't have the same ability for me to change the shape of it as I go. And of course, there's other little things that will change as well, depending on how I kind of put it all together. I'm going to try and get this to curve a little bit more. Oops. There we go. Bring this in really close. And you can see that as I pull it tight, it brings the rest of it in. So now I can pretty much just kind of tuck this in, kind of roll with it as I sew. I just got to find my previous stitch so that I line it up as well as I can. I'm trying to remember that this is not a final version. I keep thinking to myself that's not exactly where I want it. But there's a few things to keep in mind with that. For example, when I sew these heads on, sometimes I kind of turn a little bit, look in different directions. I think it just gives a different personality. So if I make like 1,000 Cthulhus with 1,000 different angles for their tentacles, it just makes each one look a little bit unique. And I can't imagine feeling like that's a bad thing. But you see, I'm pulling this out just a little bit more to the side because I do want it to separate just a little bit. Make sure I get each of these stitches in. I'm going to go a little bit further because I want to pull this a little bit higher up. And all I'm doing is tightening it in a way that causes the material to pull where I want it to go. See, moved it out just a little bit. Now for the last one, I'm just going to tighten it up, wrap it around the needle, and there we go. As a casual reminder to anybody that has forgotten, the fact that I can undo this at any time means that I have a lot more leeway in how I'm putting it together. I think getting something handmade makes it the only one in the world. It's like it's no. Yes, I fully agree. I've made basically this same mouse before. Someone loved the first one that they saw. Yellow, white, stars, these particular patterns. But if I put them right next to each other, they're not going to be the exact same. Maybe the hat's taller. Maybe the palm is bigger. The expression, the way the ears are setting, all these things kind of add up. And I can guarantee you that the nose is not going to be the same. And I love the idea that somebody can look at it and say, there's not another one of these out there. Yes, there's something similar, but it's not going to be the same no matter what someone says. Oh, that looks the exact same. No, it doesn't. You don't have the creative eye to be able to see. And let's try and get this on here. And then if we've got time, I'm going to do the next set of tentacles. I'm probably not going to put the eye on until much later. Now, with anybody that's here that's been watching, Catbee, Spaz, anybody that's interested in helping, I have the tentative plan of continuously working on this until it's done. Do you think it would be worth me doing that, where maybe I do a few things off camera, but if I do a lot of it while we're actually all live and together, seeing it come together piece by piece on each live, do you think that that would be more fun? Or do you think it'd be more fun for me to move on to the next project and just finish this when I get a chance? Sometimes I'm going to fall behind. For example, my original plan was to finish this suit. I was going to give it the yellow band here. I was going to put the sleeves on, and then I was going to sew the eyes on. All I was able to do was a greater portion of this suit the last time I was on. In fact, here's the suit that I made last time. So I know that I can't always finish something off camera, at least not within a week, especially while I'm still taking orders, because I make several of these plush mouses and I'm already feeling like I'm behind. I've got plush mouses and snakes that I'm working on. I do like watching the Cute-thulhu being made. So if you're okay with it, if you think that it'd still be fun to watch me do it for a couple days, then I will go ahead and I will continue working on this one. Let me see where I want the start. Oh, let's start that a little bit lower. I will go ahead and keep working on this one live. At some point in time, it might get to a point where it is done enough where I need to finish it offline. But if anybody has any interest in seeing something specific, you can feel free to follow me, message me, and let me know. I'm doing my best to work on different things. I'm doing my best to work on different speeds and different ideas and putting new stuff up while keeping up with orders. I've got some help making a website. I've already saved my domain name. I'm going to be trying to get a setup so that people can place orders and make custom orders there. But if there are things that you think you'd be interested in seeing, please let me know. I love trying to do everything I can to make different ideas. Just for as an example, this bunny, somebody had been asking me about bunnies from the very beginning. So whenever I started making the mice, eventually I caught up and I made the bunny live. It was just a subtle difference, but it was something I got to do live. And it made it fun to be able to do and fulfill that request. You said you love seeing different things. Do you mean like different things that I'm doing, as in like this Cute-thulhu is different? Or do you mean every time I'm on, you like seeing something new that I'm working on? As an example, would your preference be for me to make something brand new next Wednesday or keep working on Cute-thulhu? Vance, if it's not a danger, do not yell at mommy.
Yeah, don't say help unless you need help, okay?
All right, I think that's going to be a good place. I may have to tighten it up just a little bit when I get there. Cute-thulhu? Okay, fantastic. I think what you were... I thought what you were saying is you like seeing different things rather than the same old being made. But I wasn't sure if that's what you meant or if you like the idea of every time I come on Wednesday, I'm doing something brand new. Get off that. Yes, I said two things. You can't just say yes. I'm joking. I'm sorry. My son's taking a bath and he's working on learning how to get our attention in different ways. And I'm trying to avoid him thinking that panicked yelling is a good plan. The first, excellent. I'm glad to hear it. That makes me feel good because then I can casually work on this without having to worry about falling behind or coming up with a super new plan every week. It might take me a while to do, and then I might do extra days of lives, which could also be fun. I'm also going to be posting these up on another website, the Tube site, for you. And the reason I'm going to be doing that is because I save my lives, and I think it'd be kind of neat to be able to use those as instructional videos and kind of how-tos on different things. I just have to get it all set up, and I haven't had time to sit down and do that. That's not true. I've had plenty of time technically to do that, but I have not actually done it. There's always something else that's going on, and it's kind of hard to kind of keep in mind all the different things I'm trying to do at one time. Working from home, doing this all the time is the dream, but I'm also learning how to do all those different things at once. Almost done. All right, let's see what we've got. Get out of the way. Yeah. So I think one of the biggest things that's going to make a difference on whether this is cute, I might tighten that up so it curls this way a little bit more, or maybe add a couple more stitches to do that. One of the biggest things I think that's going to make a difference on whether this is cute is going to be the expression. I was thinking about giving it eyebrows. So let's say we've got, thank you, Spaz. Awesome. I'm trying my best to be like super positive about it, but I'm also all in my head too. So I thought about having all these extra eyes, and I've got different safety size eyes, but maybe I can do like a eyebrow as well. Kind of give it different expression like that. I think that might make it kind of cute. So that might help out a lot with the cuteness compared to like scary. So that's definitely something I'd love to hear your opinion on. Eyebrow, excellent. That's good. That helps out a lot. All right, now I've got that. Let's go ahead and we'll do 2 more tentacles. I think I've got enough time to sew them, cut them, sew them, and put them on. I just got to find the right size. Okay, too big, too big, too big. That's a smaller one. I've got a whole bunch of different parts in here. I think this is actually a horn. Those 2 should be good. That should be a good size for the next 2. This. Let's see. I'm going to make sure if I have any other sizes in here just to see what we're looking at. All these are different parts to different plushes. My gooblings. I think that'll be fine. If anybody's interested in seeing what my gooblings are, I will find a way to post that sometime soon. Just have to let me know that you're interested in it. I know that you have no idea what that means, what it looks like. But I don't have that sketchbook with me right now, so I can't even show you. But, next thought. Do we want to change any of the colors? We've got that mint underneath. But I'm thinking about just keep going with green. Unless you guys really want me to do mint for the next ones. Like mint on the small tentacles in the back. Does anybody have any opinion or preference on something like that? We could always change it later. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and go with the green. And then I will change it later if we decide we want to add another color to the extra tentacles. And that's only in the sake of speed for the time being. Not because I have a preference, but because I think that trying to get these last tentacles on, I'll have a better chance. Yeah, I'm really not sure either. As soon as I said it, I was like, well, I think it would look good if the smaller tentacles were a different color, but I don't think it'll look bad for sure if I do the same color. So what we'll do is we'll kind of experiment, and maybe when we do the pink version, we'll know some other ideas, and we'll try those out. All right. Now, I do like to do my best to puzzle this out to make sure I get as much use of my material as I can. Sometimes it's helpful when I'm doing more than one because then I could just kind of line them all up just like this. But sometimes I can actually see it in my head beforehand, so I don't have to worry too much about that. Again, this doesn't have to be perfect because the way I'm sewing these together gives me a few different options. And let's see, I think this is going to need to be... I'll go ahead and do this, and I'll just use this material for this excess material for something else later. Now, one of the things I thought about doing, and you guys let me know what you think. I posted something about this before. I call them reanimates. Ever since I first started working on plushes, I've been saving all my spare pieces of Minky. It used to be that I would have a lot more. And the reason for that is because, or the reason for the change is because I'm doing more patterns, so I'm doing more of the same thing, and I have a lot less spaces. But what I did was from the very beginning, I had this plan of taking like all my scraps. These are too small, but you can kind of roughly imagine what I'm talking about. I take the scraps and just randomly sew them together. And as I sew them together, I shape it just a tiny bit. So what winds up happening is in the end, there's this plush made out of all these different scraps. And I imagine it being like Second Life, like all the discarded pieces getting to have a chance to be loved as well. I know it's goofy, but that's kind of the way that my mind works about it. And I know that we as humans pack bond to things. And I thought, you know what? If someone's going to want to cuddle with something they pack bonded to, even if it's an inanimate object, if it's soft and it's got a cute story, I think that that's a win. So eventually I want to do one of those live, and I'm not sure when I will. I might do a whole different day for it, but it also fits the weird aesthetic. When it's done, it's just, I have no idea what it'll look like. I don't make a plan. As I start putting pieces together, like, oh, that looks like a foot. Oh, that looks like a head or a face. And I will literally just take that and start working from there. At the most, what I do is pick color schemes. And what's really funny to me is I noticed that every time I made one of those in the past, they felt like the softest plushes ever. So this plush feels nice and soft, but somehow whenever I make one of those reanimants, it's the softest plush. Yes, I love that I am making a quilt of my son's clothing from. That's fantastic. From the NICU, I imagine. Yeah, I had this plan for something for my son to give his mother for Mother's Day. Now the downside is he's got to give it to her early because I think it's going to be something that I need to advertise. But yet, doing something like what you're talking about, fantastic idea. Even if it's not for them, if it's just for you to have, because then you get to hold on to that forever as well. That's a fantastic idea. I recently saw somebody making clothes like pants for their toddlers out of the dad's pants. And I thought that was a fun idea too. Okay, now we are going to have progressively smaller tentacles as we go. I'm going to take this extra piece right here. I'm going to save this. I'm going to get rid of the scraps though. Oh, my nose. Okay. Sew this up pretty quickly. I got to find all my pieces. These two and these two. I'm not going to worry about stretching anything out. I'm just going to keep it at the exact same way that it is right now. My sewing machine. So I've seen something about tension before. What are you referring to when you say tension? Is it how tight the stitch is? Or are you talking about between the boot and the feed dogs? Or are you talking about your thread? I know that when I first started sewing, I didn't get the tension on my thread right, and it just would not work. So I had to start doing something a little bit more tricky. Now, the reason I'm asking is not just because I might be able to help, but there's a possibility somebody else in here might as well. I just can't figure out. Okay. So if you can kind of describe what you're referring to, I don't know the proper terminology, but I might know what you're referring to with a description, and I might be able to help. That is one big bummer about teaching myself how to do something. Of course, when I was in college, I also did not care about technical terminology because it was irrelevant, and they were just going to test me on the words, but I didn't need to know the words to know how to do a thing. I am doing my best to do this kind of quickly, trying to keep that shape, keep all my pieces together, but not being so concerned with it being perfect. And it's a pretty easy process since it's not too sharp at curves. And these should definitely be smaller. I end up with with holes throughout the line. Holes throughout the line? So my assumption is you're talking about this is the stitch line, this line right here. You went with holes in the material or gaps in your thread. Okay, so that's the line that you're talking about. Do you mean gaps in the stitching? So like one stitch to that stitch will be longer? Or are you talking about it breaks it? And now the reason I'm saying that is because from that, there's a couple things that I can consider based on my experience alone. So let's say you're talking about it's putting holes, bigger holes into your material. Use a different needle. You're going to want a needle that works with that kind of material or that kind of thread. For example, I have needles for sheer. I have needles for leather. I have needles for embroidery. The next thing will be in regards to here, the tightness. This is going to be the distance between stitches. So you can see that's how much of a gap is between the needle pushes. I've got mine set to a 3. You can't really see it because it's black on here. But that's going to make the difference between from one stitch to, or from one needle press to the other. Each time the needle goes down, when the line goes, the gaps will be big and small in the same line. That might be because of two things. So in the past, I have talked about using a previously sewn one as a handle to pull. So what may be happening is your feed dogs might need to be cleaned. The pressure on your boot or the type of boot you're using might need to be a different boot. Like for this kind of material, it's really thick. So you might need to get a boot that doesn't press down as much. And you might be able to adjust how far down your boot goes. Because what may be happening is like between the two pieces, it's feeding faster and that's getting a bigger gap. It's going slower. And if you are pulling it through, then you probably need to set this a little bit wider so it'll go faster and you won't have to pull it as much. Those are things that I was having problems with when I first started sewing as well. And I might have just described the wrong problem. But those are the solutions that I had that sound closest to what you're describing. And again, I'm so sorry if I'm misunderstanding. It's mostly because I'm using the wrong words. I'm using made-up words that I put together for it. And I know that. But I remember when I first started sewing, I had a whole lot of times when my stitches were super far apart or really close. And I learned it's because I was actually pulling too hard or pushing too hard to go through. And then adjusting the stitch, because I had it set super tight. So it was going super slow when I'm sewing, and I would pull it to try and make it go faster. And then when I realized that was my problem, fixing the distance in my stitch made it so much better. Because even when I didn't realize I was pulling it through, I was. And that made it very clearly an uneven stitch line. So hopefully that helps out in some way, shape, or form. And if not, let me know. Maybe show me a picture. I might be able to kind of give you some ideas as to what's doing that. Even if I can't describe it properly, I might be able to help you find the right terminology or the right direction to look. And I think we've talked a few times on there, so you shouldn't feel any kind of way about worrying about bothering me in any way, shape, or form. I'm here to help. Okay. Again, because I got this small end, I'm going to use a smaller amount of fluff to kind of get started, and then I'll just add more as I go. Now, another cool thing is if you don't stuff, like for example, a tentacle, if you don't stuff it super tight, you kind of keep the fluff a little bit loose. See, I'm trying to show you here. So it takes the shape right here, but it also moves around a lot more compared to this. Like it's not moving at all. This one will have a little bit more fluff if I left it loose. And that's something you could do with a lot of different parts. I prefer it to take the shape that I want because here's another thing. As this is played with, this is going to collapse and crush down. And even if you super stuff it, it's going to go super soft and probably start bending a little bit more. And if you lightly stuff it, it's just going to wind up with empty gaps, especially once it's washed. Okay. Just a few more minutes. I think ending at 8-ish will be fine, but I'm going to add these two tentacles on first. If you are curious, the reason why I'm doing, normally with the thread, you can just pull it through the stitch and not have to worry about doing what I'm doing. But I have a combination of things. First off, the stitch is kind of wide, so it's not holding this knot very well anyways. But also the needle that I'm using is a little bit too big. And what that causes to happen is a little bit of a hole left in the fabric that winds up pulling that knot straight through. But that's a nice way that you can just tighten it back up if you need to. And let's see, what side do I prefer? So if I got this here, that looks good. So then if I put this so that wraps around it, yeah, that looks good. Okay, now I just got to get it to sit like I want. So let's put you here. and see if I can't get that to work like I want. Once again, because I am not needing this to be perfectly permanent, I am sewing it with a little bit of a wider stitch so that I can find those and just seam rip it out if I need to replace it. And if I like it, I can always just kind of come back to it later and tighten it back up. I hate when my nose does this. It makes me feel so aggravated. Okay, now this is going to be a little bit tricky. I want it to be between here. Or do I? Let's see. Up, up, up. Looks like I missed my starting point anyways. Yeah, I'm going to pull this off. I don't like where that started, so you can see roughly what I mean by how easy it is to take off. And I know that that's not going to be enough thread either, so I'm just going to go ahead and cut myself a new piece. Make this super long. Maybe it'll be long enough for me to do both tentacles. Oh, I almost lost my needle. Forgot that I stabbed it in the tentacle. Now, I don't know how this is going to work out in the end. I am probably going to make the body off camera and just start reassembling it when we catch back up with each other. But if you guys don't want me to do that, if you want to watch the whole process live, do let me know. I figure all the adjustments that we're going to make are stuff that I'll do live. That way I don't worry about trying to perfect the head and get it all together beforehand. We've already talked about that being the option. But if you're okay with me doing some of the work off camera, I think I'll just go ahead and do that. To kind of spread it around a little bit, keep it a little bit entertaining. I already imagine this being right on the cusp of something that people actually enjoy watching. And I really appreciate everybody who does watch. It makes me feel happy knowing that someone's getting a little bit of entertainment out of this. My whole goal is honestly to find a way to live off of doing what I love to do, which of course is the way we should all be thinking. It's not easy in this world, especially with the way the world is right now. And I don't have any disillusion or idea that somehow or another I'm going to have enough followers that TikTok is going to pay me serious money for streaming. But if I get enough people that are interested and actually enjoy the stuff that I make, then that just means that people are going to be ordering it. And that's why I'm doing this. I just kind of get eyes on, let people see this stuff. And I get to do the stuff that I love to do. I get to interact with some of you. And I get to have a lot of fun doing something brand new on the occasion, like tonight. And I get to kind of move in the direction of what I would call success. And I know that what I call success is not the same thing what somebody else would. Somebody else probably wants to be 1 million followers deep, getting paid in tips and have 1 million people sending them money. Yes, that would be fun. But just the idea of getting to make this stuff and it leading somewhere that feels successful, that's a huge deal for me. And I bring that up because I'm trying to be entertaining when you guys are on. And I'm going to be doing everything I can to hear what you say. So please, anytime you're interested, send me a message, send me a request. Let me talk about whatever's going on. And I will happily kind of make some changes to things if what I'm doing is a little bit boring. I know my son tells me I'm boring and it makes me laugh. But I also try and adjust. Oh my goodness, my nose. I'm so sorry. I gotta blow my nose real quick. I'm sure that was an excellent thing to hear. I tried to move away from the camera just in time since I realized I was on. And that's also why I keep talking about like the horror movies. And when I'm on my Not Poke Mondays, talking about some of my favorite Pokemon and having my kid open up some packs. Little things like that are just, I'm trying to have fun. I want to have fun. I want to be fun. And it makes a big difference on what I'm doing. Because in my opinion, I spent a lot of time doing those shit jobs for people that did not care about me. And then they tried to take advantage of me. And as soon as I was getting cheated, I lost interest. I worked hard. I got the promotions. I did the extra hours. And then they're like, no, we're not going to pay you accordingly. Or we're not going to give you your bonuses and rewards. And I realized that I hated that. I hated people for doing that to me. And I think that anybody should do their best to find a way to be happy. And if I can help somebody realize that there's a new hobby for them that might make them happy, like making plushes, that's one of those things that I think would make me happy too. That sounds I'm tempting to be deep and philosophical, but it's not. For anybody who's not aware, who did not see what was happening, one of the last things I do is I tie off my thread. Like when I'm attaching these, I will tie it off. And then to avoid having just a loose end, I put the needle in and pull it out at a random spot. If you are not careful, you will put it in and put it right into your thumb. Do not do that. I promise you, you will not be happy with yourself. Be careful. Needles suck sometimes. And I keep forgetting that Wednesday is also Survivor night. But the good thing about that is I get to give my wife a hard time because she decides to watch Survivor instead of her husband.
Yep.
Because I don't matter. Nope. You're hurting my heart, Mandy. You're hurting my heart.
I'm a lot longer than you.
That's only kind of true. All right, so we're going to put this one coming out the side here. And I want to be very clear. I am giving her a hard time because she walked out here, not because I'm actually hurt. She is very supportive, very loving, very caring. She has a different type of personality than I do. Of course, that works. But my wife is not neglectful. At least not enough for me to complain to strangers. How's that? Yeah, we're going to have that little twist there. So we're going to have the tentacles in all kinds of different directions. I think that's going to look really good. I think she's watching the live one tonight. Yes, she's watching the live one tonight. Okay, now I got to make sure that I sew this so that it takes that curve. So I kind of got to hold it in place just a little bit. Again, since I'm using that wide stitch, I have a little bit more leeway. Come on. Do what I want you to do, not what you want to do. There we go. Every time I pull it, I have to reposition it because it slides part of it over. Get that underneath. I can do a couple stitches at once, I think. So, pull that, tuck this back in, right about there. Again, I've got this opening from where I'm going to be closing it up later, and that's kind of causing some problems. Hopefully, it won't cause such a big problem that I really have to close it up. All right, so let's get that a little bit higher now. And then, ow. Excuse me. There we go. That's getting my shape just a little bit closer to what I'm hoping for. Okay, excellent. Now, what I'm doing is I'm actually doing my best to keep a straight line. But I sew a little bit higher up and it'll pull it in. Sew it a little bit deeper on this side and it further pulls it in. But I now have to stop pulling it as tight because if I pull it, do the same thing here, it'll start pulling it out. It's not something I can explain as a definite format. It's just one of those things that as you are doing it, it kind of presents itself. But if you're not used to doing it, you might not know what to look for. So if I again, a lot of things that I say, you'll learn as you go and will make more sense when you do, especially if you are the type of learner who learns better by doing. If you're a visual learner, you're probably picking this up immediately. Oh, I see what he's doing. And then you'll have it memorized. If you are an audio learner, maybe the words that I'm utilizing will help. But for me, since I happen to be all of the above, there are certain technical things that I learn best by actually doing. And with this particular circumstance, the best I could do is give you a rough explanation of the plan and show you at the same time. Okay, again, I'm going to pull this tight, wrap it around my needle twice, pull the needle through, get that, tighten that up. I will take the needle, put it in as close to that knot as possible, push the needle through at a random spot, do my very best to keep it away from my thumb. Now what will happen is you can pull that knot, it'll go in there, and you can tighten this up just a little bit, and your loose end is on the inside, and you don't have to worry about it being visible. I think it's very helpful the way you explain things. I've gotten a lot better since watching. That's fantastic. That's what I love to hear too. I like the idea of doing all these little things, showing something fun, and it's still winding up teaching you something. All right. I kind of think that looks pretty good. Now, when I make the body, it might wind up pushing the arms out a bit, but that's not a bad thing. And then I can add a couple more small tentacles, like really tiny ones, maybe 3 of them in the back. And I don't have to. I can do that last, after I get everything else attached. So what I would like to know, since I'm about to get off, thank you so much, Cat B. Thank you, Spaz. I think this was a good idea, adding that, by the way. Both of you suggested that. And I think that I'm really glad that you suggested it. You can't see it up front, but it adds a little layer of something extra. Okay, so here's my questions. I've got a few questions for you, just a little bit of help if you guys wouldn't mind. I'm going to be making the body. Again, the body's going to look like this. I'm probably going to do it all green, and I can adjust for another one with a different color center later. I will do the wings on the back. I'll do some other details. What I would like is a plan for the next time, and here's why. When I get on, sometimes it takes a little bit of time for people to get here that are interacting with me. So in order to get an opinion, I either have to start on my own or get the opinion now. Should I add a plate to the top of the head? Should I add... Are you thinking ears? I'm probably going to make some ears, so that may be what I decide to do, and then wait for everybody. We've already established we want eyebrows, but I'm going to do the eyebrows after. Do you think that I should work on changing the shape? Maybe adding bulges around the eyes, adding something towards the top, adding another layer at the forehead, maybe? What do you think would be a next good step that I can start on while we're waiting for everybody to get here? Here's the front of it. I'm going to show you kind of what it'll look like with the eyes. We're going to go with big eyes real quick. I'm going to have to order some new eyes sometime soon. Maybe I can take a donation pile for that. And I'm just going to use my pliers to start with. That's roughly what we're going to have. Now, I could make them smaller. And I may wind up having to make them smaller. Ears. Yeah, okay. So I'll start with the ears when I get back on. And then we'll discuss the idea for changing the shape of the head. And maybe we won't need to. I think it will be meant pop out once we get the body. I agree. It very much might. And in the end, we may wind up adding some mint to a couple other parts as we go too. Having a multicolored plush is definitely better. And I think that if I were to remake this, I might add like a round part right here with that mint color and then put the eye in the middle of it. And I think that would change the shape and feel of the plush quite a bit. Okay, so yep, I will definitely work on the ears next until everybody gets here. I'm probably going to start on the body. And the reason is because once I get that body put together, I can just put it on and we can look and see what it looks like. But I can't guarantee it. I've got a lot of things that I'm working on. I'm working on getting photos for my website. I am working on finishing up orders. Spaz has got her plushes here. Sorry, see, I've got let me get this out of the way. I've got their Snivy and Bunny. I've got to get these put into the mail. So that's going to hopefully, I intended to do mail Monday, but we had storms all weekend. And then yesterday we had a zoo trip. And sometimes things are just not working out the way I want, but I'm working very hard to keep everything up. And I appreciate that, Cat B. So I'm going to get all the pictures taken for these. I'm going to get these sent out, plus a bunch of my other orders. I hope everybody understands. I know that some people do and some people don't, but that's my plan. And once again, I really appreciate you guys all coming by. I hope you have a great night. If I'm not back on, which I might try and get back on again on Friday, depending on how things are working out at home. Oop, there we go. It kind of does look like an octopus, which is exactly the point, I suppose, huh? So I'm going to try and get on again. I really hope this turns out pretty well. Thank you guys so much for coming by. I really hope you have a great night. Yes, definitely do. And if you can send me pictures of what you're having problems with, like a close-up of it, I might have some better answers for you too. All right, Cat B. All right, Spaz. All right, everybody. You have a great night. Thank you so much. Bye.